Today I'm going to be reviewing the Vizio P-Series Quantum, and I'm going to be letting you guys know if it was worth your time or your money. Now, the short answer is yes and no. I think the Vizio P-Series Quantum is way too ambitious for the price point. I think Vizio should not be charging these prices until they offer, again, premium levels indicative of this price point, because this is just a mid-tier television. It's not at the premium level, and quite frankly, we're going to dive into that. So one of the first problems I have with the Vizio P-Series Quantum of 2019 is definitely going to be the audio dropouts. I've ran into numerous audio dropouts regardless of whether I use the built-in TV speakers or the soundbar. And that's a big problem considering when you're watching your content, it should be consistent through and through, and it just wasn't. So if you don't like audio dropouts, this is definitely going to be a TV that you probably want to skip on. Now, to be fair, maybe my panel was just defective, or rather my speakers were just defective, but even still, this is a risk you run. Now, when we talk about other things that the Vizio does wrong, it does not have a dedicated voice control feature. Now, this might seem like a small gripe at first, but then when you realize that you're paying exactly the same as the top-end brands, it really starts to hit home. Because, you can buy TVs like the Samsung Q8FN from 2019, or, the other QLEDs from 2018, or even lesser expensive 2018 Samsung QLED TVs. And it really just bugs the absolute heck out of me that there's no voice control or app store. It is very lazy and very poorly thought out to say that, hey, we're going to release a smart TV and give you none of the smart features that the other competitors like Sony, LG, and the list goes on are offering here. Even TCL has a voice control feature, and they're super duper affordable. So just kind of let that sink in. Like, Vizio's being the laziest on the market when it comes to that. And not only that, but it bugs me to the point where, they're expecting you to have Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant devices to make up for their lapse in judgment when producing this product. Again, I don't like assumptive selling, and I don't need somebody to try to make me already own a device before I can take advantage of a very basic feature that has been industry standard since about 2013. So that's something to think about right there. You're already losing with Vizio out the gate. Now, it's not a total loss though. Vizio does have some redeeming qualities. Black levels, for instance, are one of the best I've seen in this price point. Actually, you probably won't find better in this particular price point at this particular size, because it just does a great job. The local dimming zones are very thorough, and they do a great job of making sure that you get black, not gray, black. And I think the 200 zones are definitely the real deal. Whether you're watching subtitles, whether you're watching test patterns, or whether you're just stress testing your TV, the Vizio is gonna do an excellent job in all of those categories. And I think that's something to really mention, because I was really impressed watching the subtitles and watching my PlayStation 4 boot up. Now, as I mentioned in my initial impressions, Vizio does have a problem when it does boot up, where you have, again, your black levels fluctuate and you see clouding all over the screen literally every single time you turn this TV on. Now, once you're in normal content, this isn't a thing, but for that to be the case every time you turn on your TV, for a guy like me, that's very unbearable because I hate clouding. So again, that's something to talk about. If you're buying this TV specifically to get away from clouding and you see 200 zones of local dimming, just know you're not going to be getting away from clouding. Now, other things to talk about when we talk about the Vizio are the color specifications. I know a lot of people see quantum.color and want to know how that stacks up to QLED. I can say, like, compared to the other QLEDs on the market, this is pretty comparable, especially to the 2019 ones, but the older 2018 ones that had wider color coverage, this is definitely not going to compete at that level at all, and it will get beaten. Now, that being said, this is still more than adequate color for most people, so be happy about that, because that is definitely a positive thing. Now, as we talk about HDR is vibrant. You don't have like overly ugly washed out HDR like you find on Sony TVs. However, it definitely isn't the greatest HDR on the market either, because the brightness isn't what they promised. So they promised ultra bright 1100. The max nit range that I got out of this TV was 938 nits, and it fell off almost immediately into the 800s. So again, as you're buying TVs, just be very careful, because false advertising is also a problem with Vizio apparently. Now, When we also talk about HDR, it's important to understand that I also did a video talking about the blooming and showing the blooming that occurs in the letterbox bars. So apparently when things move across the screen and it gets really bright, there's some light seepage that's gonna happen in your black bars, and I was actually able to see the entire character move across the screen and it illuminate the character's path. So that's a definite no-go for me, as I do not want to be seeing all of the movement in my movie take place in my black bars. So that's something that happens with having a budget brand TV or just a TV with really poor local dimming optimization, and that's what we see here out of Vizio in HDR. Now in SDR, oddly, it's not a problem whatsoever, but in HDR, black levels are disgusting. So I don't really like HDR for that reason, because I've even noticed this on things like my Samsung Q8FN, where HDR is not the best and it produces more blooming than an SDR. So naturally speaking, HDR isn't ready yet. There's no industry standard, but I know a lot of people are buying this TV specifically just because it says Dolby Vision on the box. Now, while we're talking about that, it's important to note that Dolby Vision is 12-bit color, and you are not getting that on a 10-bit display. It's just not going to happen. So if a lot of people are buying this TV for Dolby Vision, just wait for a real 12-bit display that displays 64 billion shades of color, and then you'll be good to go in that regard. Now, when we talk about other things that this TV does, like the motion performance, it's pretty terrible because there is a lot of motion blurring, I would say, and it is very juddery. So this is aggravated even more when you're in HDR, but it's definitely a thing in SDR. So if you're buying this TV for motion, that's also going to be a no-go. I myself was very intrigued by the, Clear Action 960, but that does not do anything but create a lot of artifacting, and when you turn it off, even still, the motion's just not smooth at any point on this Vizio. Now, when you watch high frame rate content, it gets smoother than it normally is, but it's nowhere near as smooth as it should be for the money that you're paying. Now, when you talk about redeeming qualities of the Vizio, I do like that you have the ability to create custom picture preset modes and name them and save them as their own individual presets. So typically TVs have standard, vivid, cinema, so on. Well, this TV allows you to make whatever you want. So I like this because I had the Nintendo Switch, which requires a different calibration from the PS4 and all that other stuff. So it was really nice to be able to just name something the Nintendo Switch preset, and then have one just for Nintendo, and then have one just for my Xbox, my PlayStation, and every device that I used, and then still have access to standard, vivid, cinema, and that was really, really good to have. I really enjoyed that. Now, one of the things I don't like about this TV is that color temperature works very awkward and very weird from a normal TV. Instead of doing cool, warm, expert, or warm 2, they opt to call computer, which is basically like warm, and then normal, which is warm 2, and then they actually have a cool. So they confuse you with the naming of the color temperature unnecessarily, and I think that's also a really big problem on Vizio. So if you're looking for more of a traditional type of television, Vizio is also not going to be the brand for you to trust in. Now, overall, this is a poor man's QLED. They are marketing this towards the budget consumer. They are dropping a lot of promises. They are taking tons of scale backs. I mean, you're talking about black levels deteriorating when you step off angle, black levels getting significantly worse in HDR, audio dropouts like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I could go on forever and ever. And if that wasn't bad enough, Walmart.com is deleting consumer reviews and putting up their manufacturer reviews. And if you don't believe me, go over right now to Walmart.com, look up the Vizio P-Series Quantum of 2019, and you'll see over 50-something odd what reviews taken directly from Vizio.com themselves. Because there's a big problem with the whole disingenuous reporting, controlling the narrative thing, and I had my review deleted. Now, fortunately, because I have a social media presence, I was able to put fire to Walmart.com and Vizio, and they reinstated my review. So, having that was really great for me. But what about the guy that doesn't have a social media presence of over 15,000 subscribers? Then am I to believe that their voice is just silenced for the sake of, again, Vizio's fake reviews? This is a problem. So if you're talking about false marketing and false advertising, Vizio is the shadiest in the business right now at doing that. And that, I mean, really, you can't even leave a negative review on their product their products are hardly in stock, and when you deal with them on a customer service basis, it's pretty terrible. Now, that's the case across the board with most manufacturers, though I found Vizio to definitely be pretty exceptionally bad with their customer service, though they'll claim that they win all of these awards for customer service. So it's definitely something for you guys to think about. Now, whether you are for Vizio or you're against Vizio, the idea here is just letting you know what you're getting yourself into. I know a lot of the mainstream reviewers, like Digital Trends especially, will say things how great Vizio is and how wonderful. And these sites are basically social media influencers. Their whole purpose is to influence you into buying a product. They are not going to give a 1-star review for products because they won't make money off of that. They need to stay in the good graces of the manufacturers. So when you're researching this stuff online, be very careful who you trust, because not everyone's going to be real with you like I am and tell you, hey, listen, Vizio does some good things, but there's a whole lot of bad things too. And there are a lot of drop promises and a lot of scale backs. And if you've got money in the bank, you're better off to just going with a brand like Hisense and saving a couple bucks. Or not a couple, I mean, you're saving hundreds really when you go from $1,300 down into the $100 price range, hundreds of dollars that you're saving, going with the Hisense H8F, for example. That is a better alternative TV to this, and that is what I would definitely recommend. At this point in time, for the price point that Vizio is charging for this P-Series Quantum, it is not worth it, and you are so better off moving on. Now, unless you're that guy that really wants the best of black levels possible, and you sit directly in front all the time, you don't care about peak brightness, and you don't really care about audio drops or any of the other issues I mentioned, then maybe this might be a good TV for you. But at this point, Vizio definitely has a problem with their television, and I don't recommend it. Thanks for watching the #1 brand in honesty, and until the next video, I'll see you guys later.